Welcome everyone to Holistic Wisdom Live, Conscious Collective Awakening. Today I have a very special guest and we're going to talk about awaken mastery through Tantra with Aaron Kleinerman. And I'm going to give you a brief bio about this very unique and really interesting person who I happened to meet last year in Santorini at one of the events. And we actually didn't get to connect until the very last day. And it's interesting, sometimes you meet the very important people, I think, in your life, and it might not be when you expected the least. So it happened to be in our last evening of the entire event. So Aaron has a very interesting background. He is a transformational sex and relationship coach, facilitator, and speaker. He's a lead male teacher at Elena Tantra School, a tantric practitioner and creator of Conscious Men's Guide to the Bedroom. Aaron went through from being a licensed captain, navigating ships, to a sexual behavior and movement specialist, navigating souls. I love that. His workshops, retreats, sessions, and speeches help humans integrate body movement, psychology, sexuality, and spirituality. He speaks and teaches honestly and transparently so that others can unlock the real reason for their human existence. Aaron's mastery as a teacher provides the practical tools everyone needs to implement embodied, awakened intelligence into daily life. That is so beautiful. So I can't wait for you to talk about Tantra and what does it mean? What is Tantra?
Yeah, great question and great to be here. Thanks for creating the invitation and the conversation. When people speak about Tantra, there can be a lot of different definitions and understandings. One of the ones I love is Tantra is love, but, that can mean very little. So one of the things about Tantra that really helped me to understand it more was there's a lot of spiritual lineages. There's a lot of traditions out there in the world. And what drew me to Tantra was that it's really one of the only spiritual lineages that include sexuality. So there are a lot of sutras, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of ancient literature that's been written about Tantra, and it definitely isn't all sexuality, but it's one of the only lineages that incorporates all aspects of the human experience. So Tantra is a understanding, it's a philosophy, it's a way of being that includes the totality of our entire existence. And in my own journey, what I found was in diving into esoteric teachings and diving in deep into psychology, there was often a very mind-based logic and reason understanding, which was great. I grew up in an academic family. Everything was get good grades and figure out the rest along the way. But what I started to recognize was there was, like, from my heart up, was really deeply connected into all these teachings. But then there was something else at my base that wasn't really, it was like there was a separation in my body. And then I had this beautiful, incredible tantrika woman come into my life that allowed me and showed me that, oh, wow, all of this can actually be included in the traditions of Tantra. And one of the first retreats I went to, it's just coming into my mind right now, there's this place in India called Khajuraho. And on the outside of Khajuraho, it's all these temples, these beautiful Indian temples. And they're all these positions of people in crazy sexual positions and, things you're like, how does this have anything to do with the temple? And the beautiful thing about it was people would go there to feel the fullness of life on the outside, to feel the wildness and the craziness and all of that. So then by the time they actually entered into the temple, they were in the deeper ecstatic current to be able to rest into a deeper silence. And this is the thing that really differentiates, I find, Tantra, is that before I knew Tantra, my meditations were beautiful and strong, but after incorporating my sexual energy through into my consciousness, from the crown to the base, from the base to the crown, then the level and the depth to which I've been able to experience a deeper sense of meditation, a deeper actuality of sitting in the silence of my own being has been exponentially larger. And, you know, I'm a meditator. I love to sit in silence and to experience life around me. But it was through going, allowing my body to have the depth of emotionality, to have the depth of fear and worry, and to go into like these primal, weird, crazy energy parts of us, and then to say, wow, all of that is welcome as well. And it's the reason I dedicate my life to sharing and living these principles, because I've seen in my own existence that nothing has supported a deeper integration for my body than actually allowing all parts of me to be welcome in the bedroom, in the boardroom, in all areas of life.
It's so beautiful. It's so true, because there's really not one system that I know of that's fully integrated. So I wasn't aware that that's actually what Tantra was.
Mm.
So would you say, so do you primarily work with men, or men and women, couples? And what kind of, do you also work with people who have trauma? So there are a lot of
Mm.
people that have sexual trauma. And I know, like, for me as a practitioner, this is absolutely not my area of expertise. So it's important to discuss these topics, because also for those that are listening and are seeking for practitioners that can help guide people through trauma, right? Or some kind of body trauma, sexual trauma. Like, I'd love to see what your perspective is and who do you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I mean, I work a lot with men, but in our groups with Alaya, we run retreats and co-ed retreats. I also run men's full 7-8 day immersions where we dive deep into all of the shadows between brothers, all of the sexual shadows of homophobia and all the things that nobody wants to talk about, but it's all under there, under the surface. And trauma is always a big piece of this. I mean, for a lot of humans, both male bodies and female bodies, there's a lot of different beliefs, trauma situations that happen at a young age. And so what our body has done is it's kind of closed them off, it's tucked them away and said, the only way I can be safe is if I don't feel the depth of that experience. But what happens is we enter into relationship, we enter into life, and then all of a sudden our body feels like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit more safe here. And then our partner, or this one that we've let down all of our mask, comes in, and we feel this part of us coming out that's like, oh my God, I can't even control this energy because it's overwhelming me, this protective part of us. So a foundation of that, it's like we're in this body, we're a soul in this body, and this body is a bioelectric magnetic being, meaning that we have positive charges and negative charges. We have kindness, we have cruelty, we have good, we have bad. And so as we go through this life, we know duality. And the trauma that lives in our body is usually from a moment in our life where we only held a particular situation as being, quote, negative and bad. And the only way to move through that was we had to push it away and not feel it completely. So what really this world of Tantra and deeper somatic body work and somatic experiencing is doing is creating a safe container for people to go into the uncomfortability, into the resentment, into the guilt, into the frustration, into the time when, you know, your voice was, you were told to shut up as a young kid. You were told to not cry. You were told to, big boys don't cry. All these things that we take in, all these programming that we've taken into our brain that's actually inhibited us from allowing our voice to be well spoken in the world. And I say that because every single one of us has a vision, has a mission, has a part of us that we're trying to deliver. But as we try to deliver that, we often come up into our own trauma. We get confronted by the places to where our throat isn't open to experience the world, to where our emotional body is very unhealthy, and we're blaming, shaming, and criticizing the outside world instead of taking emotional responsibility. So trauma is absolutely a big piece of this. I mean, I've been working in this field of abuse and sexuality for a long time, more deeply in the field of Tantra for the last 6 years. But in my early 20s, I worked for a self-development publishing company, and we had thousands of authors around the world sharing stories like, thank God I was raped. Thank God my son died. Thank God I was sexually abused. And basically the premises of that is until we can become grateful for all of life and the what we've been through, then life continues to haunt us. But to be grateful first has to start from the mind beginning to understand the equanimity of reality. And then secondly, we have to go into the pain and recognize that seeking pleasure and avoiding pain doesn't support us, but rather feeling the totality of the pain, feeling the fullness of the things that we didn't have permission to feel at a young age, it actually creates more spaciousness in our world so that we're able to connect the vision, the purpose, the desire of our soul to be this amazing cosmic being grounded down into the body that can feel the ecstatic current of life, because we feel safe in the body. And we can't feel safe in the body if we don't feel safe in the bedroom, if we don't feel safe with our innate sexual energy. It's like we're having this conversation right now because at some point, mommy and daddy came together and had sex and created us. And it's a beautiful part of life. But unfortunately, it's the part of life that for most education and for a lot of things is completely pushed aside. But the most powerful energy that we know is our sexual energy. So why not learn to harness it, to approach it, to confront it, and to allow it to actually circulate through our body without agenda, and allow us to awaken the deeper trenches of our being that are saying, yes, I'm ready. I want this life. I want this life force to move through my body so I can awaken into something even deeper.
That's beautiful. So my next question then to you from a man's perspective, because you do work with men, how difficult do you find it takes for men? Well, first of all, I wanted to know what the general trauma would be for men that are coming and seeking to work with someone like you. I think this is key. And second part is, how difficult is it to shift from the mindset of being the doer, cutting out the feelings, which is your general male population. I'm not meant to feel, I'm just here to do, to act, be hard, right, with my energy. How difficult is it to transition, and how surprising, I guess, is it also for men who embody the soft, the divine aspects, feminine aspects that exist within them as well? Because I think that's the part that men push away.
Yeah, again, great question. What I see is that there has to be a certain willingness for a man to show up in this way. And, I come from a maritime military background. I didn't want to feel a lot of things, because for me, feeling, the only way I knew how to feel was to go get drunk on the weekends and just allow myself to get wild and crazy, because I didn't know how to move my emotional body. Nobody had ever taught me that in education. And so I had all this anger. I had all this like frustration and hatred towards my mother, towards my childhood, towards all the chaos and the bankruptcy, and my father living out of his car, and just this crazy situation. And I'd always asked, like, why me? Why did I have to go through all of this? And when I gave myself to feel the depth of all of that, then I started to arrive at deeper answers. And so to answer your question, it's like there has to be a willingness inside of a male body, especially, to say, wow, something that I'm doing doesn't work anymore. I'm hitting my head against the same brick wall. I'm attracting the same relationship. I'm in the same paradigm. I'm trying to wear the same mask, and I'm not willing to get vulnerable. And the reason that a lot of people don't want to come to a tantric workshop is because it actually is terrifying. I'm not saying that it's going to be terrifying, but what it requires is to confront our shadows, to confront the things inside of us they're shadows for a reason. They're shadows because we don't want to feel them. And so, but what the thing I want to connect really deeply is that the place of our power exists in our solar plexus when we can confront these shadows. And what I see to answer more specifically, in the trauma of men are all the times when their voice was shut down, when their power was taken away, when their emotional expression was not allowed. And what I see is that when a container, a great example, years ago, I was teaching in Australia, and Australia typically is a very, like, you know, there's women that love this work, but men are very blue collar, not all across the board, but, you know, very, like these guys on this weekend, the first day was all women and the second day was all men, and all the men coming with the boyfriends and the husbands, and they were like, I don't really actually want to be here. My wife is making me come here, but maybe there's some truth here. So, you know, in the first 30 minutes, I led them into this practice, and it was all men in the room. And what was beautiful was, as soon as the container was created for them to be in their emotionality, and I never forget this, every single man there was in deep tears. Like, this emotions were arising out of them. And I came to tears as well, because I was like, oh my God, I love to be able to open a space where it's the feminine energy in a male body finally feels safe to express, because men are so used to always being the one I hold. I have to be the Shiva presence, which is a kind of a Hindu oriented way of, you know, there's Shiva, there's Shakti. Shiva is more the masculine principle. Shakti is more the feminine principle. And so for a lot of men, we're only used to being in this place where I have to be directive, I have to be penetrative, I have to hold awareness. And it gets exhausting after a while. And so to create a container that allows the feminine expression in a man to feel safe to come out, every single time, like, men are surprised. I'm surprised, because there's a waterfall of emotion that's welcome there. And there's a fear, especially for male bodies. There's a fear for me that was like, I don't want to go into this emotionality stuff. I don't want to be a pussy boy. Like, what's this all about? And I still see it. Like, one of the things I love, there's a few Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and it's all like very masculine men. And sometimes if I like do videos around, like, you know, awakening your feminine essence, guys are like, oh, this is all pussy shit. What's this about? And what's happened in my own journey, and I want to say this very clearly, is the depth that I've gone into my feminine expression has been the depth to which my masculine has got stronger, more clear, more determined, more penetrative, and more like alive, and having a deeper capacity to hold more awareness in life. Because it's almost like the band of possibility gets larger. The depth of awareness gets larger the deeper we go into the polarity. And then what the beautiful integrative work that's possible is when we bring that all in, and then we're just in this dance where I can be completely forceful, penetrative, and coming from my heart, at the same time being receptive and feeling and allowing. And these polarities are dancing within us. So we have to create spaces within ourselves and create a willingness to have the conversations that we're not willing to have, to go in and to be uncomfortable, to be in our vulnerability, to lead into dialogue in our relationship, to say, hey, you know, I don't know. Like, those 3 words are some of the most difficult words for a male body to say. But when it's said, it's like, well, okay, wait, let me breathe here. I don't know something. It's going to be okay. The world isn't going to fall apart. It's all going to be okay. And it's beautiful when a strong alpha man can actually get vulnerable and can get real, and to know that that's by getting vulnerable and real, he's actually creating and recognizing a deeper sense of authentic, true power inside of him that he may never have known before.
So beautiful. You know, everything that you say is actually very similar as well to the angle that I use in the medical approach. You know, in order for any kind of medical condition, a chronic condition, to heal, in order for us to heal ourselves, you know, we have to courageously embrace the parts of us that have been neglected for the longest time. So it's the same approach from a different angle. But my question is, because a lot of times people associate Tantra with sex. Why is that? Like, why do people think, oh, Tantra, it must be sex related?
Well, it's you know, I mean, the moment I tell people, oh yeah, I'm a male Tantra teacher, they're like, you're a weird, creepy dude who's trying to me. Like that's a moment, and it's like, no, there's a lot of beliefs that are coming with that in that statement. But both, fortunately and unfortunately, there is a lot of misuse of sexual power in this field. And a lot of times people associate Tantra to sex and orgies because that's all that's ever showcased out in the media, like the deeper depths of this tradition of deity worship, which my beloved has got really deeply dives into, of of understanding and opening the crown and meditation and opening the throat. That's the reason, like, our living Tantra retreat, which is our basic retreat, we start at the base and we go one chakra at the time. By the time we're opening up the third eye, yes, sexual energy is alive in the body, but we're not, opening up the third eye while we're, having a big orgy. It's like there's this big belief that the moment Tantra is on the table, all you guys are doing for 7 days is just having one big orgy. It's like, well, you can believe that, but that's not actually the truth, and it's funny. But what's the reason that comes up is that people are so uncomfortable the moment sex comes onto the table, the moment that people start talking about sexuality, about their genitals. There's often this very like uncomfortableness of, oh yeah, like I don't really know what. Yeah, let's just not talk about this. Let's just turn off the lights. Let's have a 5 seconds of penetrative sex. Neither one of our bodies are actually warmed up, and we need oil to make sure the woman's lubricated, and we need to go into this sexual act, and neither one of us are there. And then afterwards, I have a 3-second genital sneeze, you have a 2-second clitoral orgasm, and then hey, life goes on. And unfortunately, that's the way most people's sexual interaction happens. And what I've experienced is the first time, there's a great book that's coming to my mind. It's Finding God Through Sex. David Deida wrote this, and it's brilliant. The first time I really experienced like the infinite abyss of creation was staring into, at the time, my partner's eyes in the depth of lovemaking. And all of a sudden my body was like, wow, there's an entirely new world here. And the reason that I feel like that's there is because all of my body is online. It's all there. So when you can take that energy and you can bring it into lovemaking, you can bring it into meditation, then you really can utilize sexuality as a as a shamanic healing principle. And we often say, we run these weekend fundamentals of Tantra workshops. Sexual energy is a deep healing modality. And when we can utilize sexual energy to awaken into the diseases, and I'll connect it to, I know some of the work that you do, the diseases in our body, then we can circulate that energy and open up the places that we weren't willing to feel. And the reason that often diseases are forming in the body is because there's usually suppressed energy, anger, pain, emotion that has never had a chance to express. And because finally the body's like, well, you're never going to feel me, so I'm just going to start showing up now in the physical recognition of the body, in the form of cancer, in the form of all these different ailments that come into the body. But when we can feel it and we can actually step into the bedroom, like in lovemaking with my beloved, there's times where there's like wild rage and emotion, but we're just riding these waves of energy within us without the agenda that, oh my God, she's crying, I need to fix her, something's wrong, I need to put on my protector mask and make her all better right now. It's like, no, she's just feeling because we have the joy of feeling in life. She's angry because she's angry. I'm upset because I'm upset. It's not about making it wrong. It's about actually letting all of that be welcome into our experience. And when all of that is welcome into our experience, and it starts from the base and it rises up the spine and it goes up through our heart, into our throat, through our third eye, to our crown, then life itself becomes a living, breathing meditation. And then all of that is how we actually live and breathe through the essence of love moving through us. That for me is Tantra. And it's not, yes, at times it's sitting in full stillness, but the song of Tantra, as my beloved has shared so beautifully with me, is just in that, like, your whole body. And again, I'll connect something. If you look at the back of ambulances, there's often the caduceus. And the caduceus is that snake running up the spine. That is Kundalini energy. So when you're in the depth of lovemaking and all of your centers are online, Kundalini from your base is just rising, and you're rising it up and you're rising it down, and you're moving and you're circulating. This is life. This is how we're meant to live, not static, stuck behind a cubicle, forgetting about the essence, the fullness, the static current that's capable of running through us. Certainly we can do that, but if we've forgotten humanity, if we've forgotten who we are, then the opportunity is to actually confront what we're afraid to confront, so that we can allow life force to move through us. This is Tantra, this is life, this is love, and this is the possibility that happens when we can show up in our fullness, in our depth of our communication, the depth of possibility within us.
It's so beautiful. I have a question for you.
For sure.
For me, I've noticed, and perhaps some people, from speaking with a lot of people that I work with, most people have never experienced what you just explained. And I realized that for me, it wasn't until I felt absolute deep connection with my partner, who is just, I would say, an extension. We're an extension of each other, that we feel this energy rising that you were talking about. And I've never experienced it until I came into this, I would say, divine union. And it's such an incredible, powerful experience to have this energy rising through me and through my crown. And it's interesting because what I've noticed, and again, I've never studied Tantra, it happens in the moment when I'm feeling his energy. Right before it's rising through me, and it's now through my crown. So is that something that you see is pretty common in your work and people that have studied with you? Or would you say this is also about two people who are so deeply connected, feeling each other's energy and allowing for that to flow, and that's kind of the natural expression of it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two pieces there. One, I love that you bring in relationship, because what I found is that, the places where I can most deeply confront my shadows and the areas of my uncomfortability is living in in divine union with another, because there's nowhere to hide, there's nowhere to run, and it's unfortunate in our modern culture, most people get confronted by the things inside of us we're not willing to feel. And what do we often do? We get a divorce and we run away and we go find another lover, we go find another situation, because we're not willing to sit in the uncomfortability so that we can experience what you're talking about here. And what I find that which you're speaking of is capable is when we feel safe enough to first know the inner union within ourselves. And what often happens in relationship is there's this codependency that starts to circulate, where I need you to have an orgasm, or you need me to have a certain peak experience. But rather, if I can know a inner union within here, and I can feel loving and connected to all the polarities inside of me, masculine, feminine, all aspects, dark and light, all parts of my being, so that by the time I'm in the throes of lovemaking with my beloved, what happens then is that exact piece is our energy starts to circulate and come together. There's this beautiful practice we introduce in our weekend fundamentals of Tantra. It's just a basic microcosmic orbit where the woman is receiving the breath in through her yoni, which is the Sanskrit word for vagina, and then that breath is rising up, and then the woman is penetrating the man through her breasts, through her heart. The man is receiving that breath in through the heart, allowing his heart to open, drawing the energy down, and then penetrating through his base. And there's an analogy there as well, is that, and this is a very tool that people can use. It's like often man and woman come together, man's heart opens through sexuality. Whereas a woman's heart needs to be open before her sexual center comes online. So we're literally these two polar opposite. A man gets hard usually quite initially, and then, you know, he wants to go right into penetrative sex or whatever it was. And the woman's like, well, you've just kissed me. I need a whole like 20, 30 minutes of allowing my body to rise and love and freedom and truth, and allowing energy to circulate through me. And so if a man, especially male bodies listening, take time to allow that energy to circulate, so that if you want this experience of really feeling Shakti, the feminine, in her full essence of aliveness, it requires her heart to open first. And that starts well before the bedroom. It's like you have to start well before the bedroom. She wants to be loved. She wants to be cared for. She wants to be reminded how beautiful she is and adored, so that by the time you actually come into the bedroom, there's already that space of safety. And I think one of the things that I really heard you saying is that you felt in your relationship, wow, I can feel safe to completely surrender and completely let go. And in that surrendering, that's where energy starts to circulate, because there's no longer a holding on. There's no longer this tension in the body. And unfortunately, that, as we talked about earlier, the reason that tension is there for a lot of both male bodies and female bodies is because there's often trauma associated to our sexual energy. So when safety is allowed and surrendering is possible, then we really can experience this whole other way of being in the bedroom that can't necessarily even be explained, but that is our sexual energy merging, uniting, playing, dancing with another. And it's this whole other capacity to heal and to step into divine union in a way that, until I actually had an experiential movement of that, it always was just comprehension in the mind. I knew this, I understood these concepts, but it was in that moment in the bedroom where it was like, oh, this is what it means of being the divinity, of experiencing, you know, cosmic bliss in the body. All this like incredible energy that you see in a lot of spiritual traditions that's going high into the cosmos, into all of this. But Tantra is actually, we're living, breathing divine beings, and we're experiencing that divinity not outside of the body, but in the body. And that in the body is juicy, it's alive, it's chaotic, it's painful, it's all of it, and it's all welcome.
That's so beautiful. So I have another question, because
Mm-hmm.
let's say a person is experiencing all of this. Actually, I brought this up with my beloved, and I said, okay, this is like unbelievable experience. I mean, truly, because it feels like literally you can paint. I could paint it because I could see the field expanding and the waves are coming through. You know, it's unbelievable. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is, you know, a lot of times I've heard people talk about, oh, you know, you have to set an intention. And I'm like, okay, well, what intention do I set? Because I'm so in the moment of bliss. Like, do people need to focus if they are experiencing this and set some kind of intention, or just allow the surrender and energy to flow? So that's the question that I have.
Yeah, great question. I mean, there's two sides to that. One is, you know, for people just experiencing that for the first time, get your mind out of it. Just let yourself have like the most incredible, you know, cosmic experience you could ever imagine, and it's beautiful to do that. And you know, what's one of the things I'm just saying, and it's coming to my mind right now, and really one of the gateways into that, and this can be a whole other conversation, but is through the cervix. And when the cervix is open and expanded, then it's literally these gateways into the womb, and the womb has just this entire other world of possibility. And the second answer to that what you're saying is that as you're starting to experience this more and more, what you can do with your partner is like beautiful sex magic rituals, where you're wanting to manifest and create different things in your reality. So you create, you know, one of the things my partner and I do, and I recommend this for couples as well, is to create love appointments. because it's so easy that in our day-to-day life, life gets busy. It's like, we go to work, we get this, we get this. So by the time at the end of the day, it's like, 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're both looking at each other in bed. You're like, oh, I'm exhausted. Yeah, you're exhausted. Oh, okay, let's just go to bed. And what happens is that happens for a week, and then a month, and then a year. And then before you know it, you're laying in bed with this person next to you who you think you're in this beautiful, happy relationship, but neither one of you have actually had any type of sexual intimacy because you haven't created the time for it. So, with us, one of the things we always recommend is creating love appointments, creating time where it's like, this is our time, to dedicate to each other. And, we, as a dear teacher of mine who really introduced this concept quite deeply to me. Her name is Ma Ananda Sarita, who lived with Osho for many years and is a beautiful, like, just walking example of living love. And as we introduced this concept into our relationship, it was beautiful because sometimes, we want a love appointment and we both work from home and we have our own schedules at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we don't always need to have, okay, this is our love appointment, but it's good to have that structure sometimes, because then in the opening of that love appointment, you're really just creating the intention and the desire of what's possible inside of that hour or hour and a half, whatever time you want to allocate for that. And then if that intention is there, you can let that energy circulate, and then you can draw it and you can connect the dots between what you're creating in a physical manifested world and what energy is arising inside of you. So, and I've seen this over and over again, like when we've been kind of calling people into our retreats or our online courses, it's like, we'll do some sex magic. And then within a day or a couple days, there's all these new emails and messages. And it's like, people just, it's like you can't actually understand it on a mental level because it's happening on these subtle energetic levels that people just feel the call when their soul is aligned to say, hey, I'm ready to show up into this field. So yeah, and it's the dark side of this. There's both, and I'll talk about this just for a minute, is that the dark energy that our sexual energy also includes is that part of us that knows how to annihilate and destroy and completely own and take over another. And that energy can be extremely hot as well as extremely terrifying. And this energy is what you can see, the abuse and the misuse of it in the world. And what I say to everyone is that we have to know that energy inside of here. If we don't know it in here, if I don't know my own capacity to destroy, to rape, to pillage another, then I'm only going to judge it on the outside. So whatever I suppress on the inside gets expressed on the outside. And so I love that I can bring my wild, dark, crazy animal at times to the bedroom and it's fully received. That doesn't mean I went there right away when we first got together, but it takes time so I can let that energy run through my body and not be hating it on the outside and all the things that we see in the world, like, oh my God, those people are terrible. Take that mirror back to ourselves. And this is, again, a practical tool of taking what we know in the bedroom out into the boardroom and out into life, is that we have to utilize our sexual energy as a reflective way to look at the world. And if whatever we're judging on the outside as bad, as ridicule, as terrible, we need to know that within here and our capacity to do it. Doesn't mean I go out and do those things. I just let that energy run in my body. And it's fun, actually, when you're like, and you're like, get crazy about it. It gives so much permission for the body to have like the depth of experience that it's been longing for and waiting for. And, the feminine in us all wants to be, taken and completely annihilated and just taken to God, both in male bodies and female bodies. But what it requires to be there is safety, is presence, is loving awareness. We can't go there right away, but once we build up to it, it's like, yes, this is what's possible. This is joy, this is freedom, this is fullness in the body, celebrating this human experience.
So from your point of view, you said that when you want to manifest something, the two of you, do you focus on the same thing at the same time? Do you have like something that you do? Your
Yeah,
magic?
we will have a conversation about it beforehand in terms of what our intentions are, what we're wanting to create. And then, if orgasm does happen, whether in male body or female body, then what I find is that in the throes of the depth of orgasm, let your voice communicate what you're manifesting. And this is a really key point, is that, you first, it's like the mind first sets the container, sets the framework of what you're going into. And then as you're into the body, often when we go into the body, there's this place of our voice gets shut down, and we don't actually, it's like, uh, I don't know how. So we're training our body to learn how to communicate through our voice, so that in that moment you're like, yes, I stand for love, oh, or whatever it is, or yes, I am manifesting 1,000 clients in the next year, oh yes. And you really bring it in. And then if you're both in that place, you don't have to be in the same, like manifesting the same thing. It's even better if you're doing something together, whether it's a workshop or a new offering, whatever it is. But then you do that, you look into each other's eyes, and it's like, all you see is this flow of abundance, because the world wants us to be abundant. The world wants us to manifest our desire. The world, like our being, wants us to live the life of our dreams. And when we're in that space of sexual energy moving through our body, that's where we know full flow state. It's where we know full abundance moving through us. So to communicate in that moment, it's not to then have a long conversation of, oh, this didn't work then. It's like, just let it spontaneously arrive inside of you and be, the answers to which we seek in those moments allow the creative impulse inside of us to manifest in ways that we never know. And I'll speak from my own experience. Like, I'm a poet. I love the creative expression inside of me, and the depth of my poetry has increased when in lovemaking. At times, I just speak poetry. It's not all the times, but I can just allow my voice to make love, both in physical form as well as with my words, to my beloved in front of me. And it actually, I can feel sometimes, it's like I can feel these neurological wires in my body being reprogrammed. They're like, oh yeah, I can do this when I'm doing spoken word poetry. I can do this when I'm sitting in front of a computer, because I feel the connection of my sexual power in the moment of opening my throat chakra and sharing that with the world.
That's beautiful. What the image just came to me when you were in a divine union. I think what happens is you're literally creating universes together. You're birthing the universe into existence. That's what the image that comes to me. Would you describe it that way as well?
Yeah, you're birthing universes, you're birthing possibilities, you're birthing different realities. And I want to make another segue here, is that what I see happen in a lot of spiritual communities and different places is that there's a lot of people going to medicine, and a lot of people going to these peak experiences. And sexuality, what the experiences we're talking about, can just become another peak experiences that we're seeking. And the key to making a difference is to actually grounding it into reality. And that can look like a lot of different ways. That can look like, okay, we set the container initially, we have this incredible peak experience, and then afterwards, it's good to have maybe a dialogue or a conversation, or go write in your journal, or go write and ground what we've experienced in the cosmos, or creating universes, or birthing new conceptual ideas, and grounding it into the body. And this is really important. And I see this because a lot of people, we as humans, we love to find these peak experiences where we're just going and we're learning and we're dissolving. And then what happens is we can actually become addicted to peak experiences. We can become addicted to needing ayahuasca every weekend. We can become addicted to needing a plant medicine that's going to take us to a peak experience that we don't know within ourselves. And this is why I love sexual energy, is this, I don't need it, I don't need any drug. I don't need anything to get from anything. I can actually, I can let this, and I can do it on my own. You know, we're talking a lot about doing this in partnership, but in self-pleasure, non-agendaed self-pleasure, I can feel the peak potential, the peak experience, and then ground that into my body to manifest and create abundance on however I want to be in the world. And this, again, relating this back to male bodies, most male bodies especially, the only thing we know about self-pleasure is a 10 or 15-minute masturbation session where we ejaculate and then we go on to our life. And a lot of times masturbation is completely shamed and ridiculed, and we're like, it's told it's dirty. Like, I have a friend in this masculine symposium I was just doing. A friend of mine, Simon, his workshop he did was the guru in our pants. And it's like, these hands, if we let our hands naturally just hang, they hang right at our sexual center. So the fact that we're told at a young age, or whatever the programming on sexual energy has been, that we're not supposed to touch ourselves, that we're not supposed to masturbate, all these different things, it's crazy, it's ridiculous, it's absolutely absurd what programming comes in around sexuality and feeling pleasure in our body. Because when our hands are there and we can circulate energy with our hands and touch our body lovingly without trying to get anywhere, when a man or any being starts to do that, you literally start to feel tingles running through the whole body. And that's where the space of being more multi-orgasmic comes in, of feeling orgasm for a minute, 10 minutes, hours, days long, because you're just in this orgasm of making love to life and making love to existence. And it's not something you're trying to go get. It's something that deeply and completely, because you're grounding it into your body. You're feeling it into the earth. And I that's such an important piece, is to recognize, and there's a lot of different tantric schools out there that often just take people into different peak experiences one after another. And the key important piece with all this is integrating this into life and giving the body permission to slowly, gently wake up and not rush into things. Let the body naturally open and expand, and then the experiences of opening universes is possible.
Yes. I'm so glad that you actually mentioned the nature of seeking these peak experiences through other modalities as well. And that's right now is a big hype. Everybody's wanting to experience something outside of self, when in reality, and I think this is what you're teaching, is it's integrating and understanding that we have this within ourselves, and there's really nothing that we need outside of ourselves to give us this experience. And this is what I've been teaching people. I have people that have gone to ayahuasca retreats, and they're doing mushrooms and all kinds of things. And what people don't realize is it's creating holes in the field. It literally tears up your field, and it makes you, in a way, think, and in many ways think, that in order to experience something greater than yourself, which a lot of people think that there's something greater than yourself, it always has to do with the external exogenous substances. Mm-hmm. This goes back into exactly what you're teaching, that it's all about going within, learning more, and embodying who you are, versus looking for the external.
The external source to make yourself, to chase a high. And I'll speak, because I feel like there are times in my own journey where, like, a couple of those different plant substances have opened me, have expanded me. But what I've recognized is that I could feel a part of me that wanted to continue to chase it. But what I recognized I needed to was to ground all of the expansion in my body and then take it into life, because it literally blows the cap on everything. And if we only know that as a way of experiencing the divine within us, then we're continually, for the rest of our lives, chasing these experiences. And again, this is really where I find sexual energy is the key through all of this. And it's unfortunate because that's generally where most of the shadows is. And I've seen it even in plant ceremonies where, there's a lot of shadows from the shaman and a lot of things that come up because he hasn't owned his own sexual energy. So yes, those plants can be supportive, but if you recognize that you're continually using it to get out of the body because you don't feel safe in the body, then that's just to bring more awareness to it and just recognize, okay, maybe I need to let go of this. And I've seen, especially with where marijuana has happened in the US, and there's this big expansion. I think there's great benefits of it, but to actually like tune into the energetics of the plant, I feel like she feels abused, misused. It is just like, I don't want to be this, like, it's sad in a way. And what the other sad piece I've seen times I've been back in California, I find sometimes I go out to gatherings or social gatherings, and it's hard to find somebody who's not high. Doesn't mean everybody is there, but it's like this propensity inside of the human culture right now to not want to be in the body, because it's almost like to be in the body doesn't feel safe. So let me take the substance, let me have alcohol, let me do all these different things so that I can have the illusion of safety. And fair enough, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of things that have happened, and I get why people want to do it. And the calling I'm saying to anyone listening, to anyone feeling the call, is to check back in with the self and to really be willing to confront the places of where you don't feel safe. And if you need support, reach out to someone as myself, as Elena. Like, this is where we as humanity can actually step forth, to no longer need things on the external, but to actually learn how to integrate into, to utilize the gifts on the internal, so that the reason we've incarnated becomes even more clear and understood and delivered in our day-to-day actions.
I'm so grateful that, first of all, you teach what you teach, and you teach it from such an integral part of you. Because there's so many teachers who I have seen, who I've interviewed, I've been a part of different events, who are teaching from a high level, but it's not embodied. And I think, and I know your work is so beautiful because you embody it and you are speaking from a place of truth and honor. And I think that's really beautiful. And for those people that are listening right now, and I know that we'll add the links, I think I've added the link before, but I'd like for people to know like what you're teaching, how they can reach you online. Of course, there's many travel restrictions. I want to know if there's any retreats you and your partner teach together. And yeah, what are you offering? I'd like to.
Absolutely. Well, first, the one I want to mention is the one that I'm so grateful that you'll be a part of coming up in September, and that's a integrated feminine symposium, really creating a space for the feminine within us all to learn how to lead and learn how to feel and learn how to actually like step into their power in the world. So I have Elena and over 60 other incredible speakers coming in to do 60 to 120-minute workshops for 5 days, 24 hours a day. Incredible content. Some of the speakers coming in are absolutely mind-blowing. So you can go to theintegratedfeminine.com to find out more. And I just did the same thing with the masculine, which was amazing. And I have an online course that's going to be delivered shortly as well. And that's 8-week online course, workshop delivered to your inbox from amazing male presenters and female presenters in there as well. So those are two things that I'm really passionate about, because I'm really wanting to reach a bigger mass, and it's a very low dollar value ticket that many more people can get access to teachers that they never would normally be able to. And then, yeah, the Tantra school I run with my beloved, we have online courses, we have in-person courses. The next one we'll be running in person is in Bali in November, assuming whatever happens in COVID land. But, we have a lot of, she's been amazing. Like, she basically, before we came together, had a vision of wanting to have, an online course for every chakra. So it's an 8-week online course, and there's a practitioner training they're working on right now. We have introduction to Tantra courses. I have an 8-week conscious man's guide to the bedroom, which is a very basic, fundamental, online course that allows a man who's just stepping into it, who's like, oh, maybe I've heard the word Tantra before, I don't know what it is. It's like super fundamental understanding day by day. You know, I take them through a really powerful journey. I've had that up for 4 or 5 years now, and got great feedback from that course. So yeah, lots of different ways. I do one-to-one sessions, you know, reach out. I'm happy to support people in their journey, because I know when the word sexuality can come up, there's a lot of people, I think, watch videos I do or interviews, and they're like, oh, I want to reach out. And then when that moment comes, they're like, oh, that would mean I actually have to like confront this uncomfortability inside. And I'm just going to go back to eating potato chips and sitting on the couch. Like, fair enough. You know, we are the primal creators of our reality. We get to choose whatever we want. But if you know there's a desire inside to access a deeper state of power within you, then send a message, reach out. You know, the links are below, and I'm happy to support any way I can.
Okay. Thank you so much. So thank you all for joining, and we'll definitely post the links below the video. For those of you that are interested, I know Aaron is an amazing teacher and coach, so please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for creating this.